Hello, and welcome to Cahokia Mounds State Historic Site. My name is Bill Egan, and this site is a very special site. It's America's first city. It's also the home to the largest prehistoric Indian site in the United States, and it's a World Heritage Site. We're going to take you on a tour today of this site and show you some of the special features as well as talking about the history of the site. But first, your first stop when you get here to Cahokia Mounds should be this location right here, which is the Interpretive Center. Here you can meet some volunteers that can help you, give you some guidance, brochures, trail maps. You can see a fantastic orientation show. It lasts about 15 minutes, award-winning movie that'll help you get a better understanding of what this site's all about. The museum itself is first class, lots of exhibits, artifacts, even has a small Indian village for you to visit. You're going to like it. And a little bit of the history of the site, 1,000 years ago, there was between 15 and 20,000 Indians living here. We call them Mississippians. That's a name given to them because of their culture, their way of life. It's not a tribal name. They were here from about 900 AD till about 1300. Around 1200 AD, they started leaving. By 1300, they had abandoned the site. One of the big mysteries here at Cahokia is, why did they leave? Where did they go? What happened to them? And the answer is, we don't know. See, these were prehistoric Indians, which means they left no written record behind, at least none that we have found, and only 1% of the site's been dug. So there's lots of questions we don't have answers to. About 200 years after the Mississippians left here, some Indians from Illinois called Cahokia Indians came to the site. They were here when the Europeans got here, so it was just called Cahokia Mounds and the name stuck. But the Mississippians are the ones that built all these mounds. They built 120 mounds where they were here. Today we've got about 84 left, and of the 84 that remain, 72 are within the perimeter of the park, so they are protected. The Mississippians built these mounds by carrying one basket of dirt on their back at a time. No horses, no mules, no carts. Now, let's go visit the site. Here we are at Monk's Mound, the largest earthen pyramid in the New World, in all of the Americas. This mound is 100 feet high. The base of it covers 14 acres. It's even larger at the base than the Great Pyramids in Egypt. 156 steps will get you to the very top. Took about 20 to 25 years to build the initial stage of Monk's Mound, and then it was added to over time. Monk's Mound has 4 stages, 4 different phases or terraces as you walk up the steps. At the very top is where there was a house that the chief probably lived in and ruled from. It was about 100 feet long, about 50 feet wide, and about 40 feet tall. Monk's Mound was the site and the discovery of what we call the Birdman tablet. It was about this size. This is a replica. It was discovered in 1971, and it basically tells us the story of their belief system. Their belief system was that there was an upper world, a middle world where we live, and a lower world. And on this Birdman tablet, you'll see the face of a man representing the middle world. He's dressed in a bird costume, which represents the upper world, and on the back, it looks like a snake skin representing the lower world. Monk's Mound is something not to be missed. You want to walk up those steps, you'll have no problem seeing the Gateway Arch on a sunny day. Here we are on the first terrace of Monk's Mound. 1,000 years ago, only the elite would be able to walk up here. Common folks would not have been able to get up on this part of the mound. There's still 3 more terraces to go up, and it took about 14.5 million baskets of dirt to build this mound. It's a lot of work. If you look over my shoulder, you'll see Mound 48, a very important mound here at Cahokia. It was the mound that between 1809 and 1813, French Trappist monks were living there, and that's how Monk's Mound got its name. Look behind me, and you'll see one of the features of the site that doesn't get near the attention it should be getting, the Grand Plaza. Mounds commonly had plazas around them, but this one is the granddaddy of them all. 40 acres in size, leveled by hand by the Indians 1,000 years ago, using tools of wood and stone. The Grand Plaza was a place where they had ceremonies, where they played games. They had a marketplace, a public gathering. And one of the games they played that was their national pastime was a game called Chunky. And this is a chunky stone. Chunky stones were used in the plaza. What they would do is they would roll the chunky stone down the middle of the plaza, and the Indians would take their spears and throw their spears to try to get the spear to stick where they thought that chunky stone was going to stop. And then they'd run back down and do it the other way. A lot of chunky stones have been found here at Cahokia. Native American Indians were playing the game when the Europeans got here, and they have found figurines that show people with a chunky stone in their hand getting ready to roll it. That's how we know they were doing it. And now, on to the next segment. Have you ever built a fence in your backyard, or maybe you helped somebody build a fence? A lot of work. Behind me is an example of the size and dimensions of the stockade wall or palisade that the Mississippians built when they were here. This fence was 2 miles long, almost 15 to 20,000 trees to build it, and they built it 4 times while they were here. It enclosed 17 mounds, Monk's Mound and the Grand Plaza. And they didn't build this fence till after they had been here for about 200 years. Makes you want to question, why all of a sudden after 200 years do you build a fence that took this much labor? 12 feet high. The posts, the trees they used were about 12 inches in diameter. It wasn't to keep raccoons out, we know that. We believe it was for defensive purposes as well as separating the classes. If you're part of the elite, you lived inside the stockade wall. If you're just common folks, like a flint knapper, a pottery maker, or a farmer, you lived outside. I'm sure most people viewing this would have been living inside that stockade wall. So when you come to Cahokia, come look at the reproductions of the stockade wall. We also have one inside the interpretive center. Very important feature of the site. We hope you'll enjoy it. Did you ever wonder how the Mississippians knew when it was time to plant and when it was time to harvest? Well, this is it. It was a very sacred area for the Mississippians then, and it still is today. It's called Woodhinge. Woodhinge is a solar calendar that the Mississippians used to determine the spring and the fall equinox, as well as the summer and winter solstice. And it was done by a series of posts like you see here. Woodhinge was built 5 times. The reproduction we have here today represents the 3rd Woodhinge that was built. It has 48 posts. They're 410 feet in diameter, and the center post is where the chief would have stood and lined up one of the outer posts with Monk's Mound. And on the spring and fall equinox, maybe the most important 2 days of the year for the Mississippians, it would appear as though the sun was rising right out of Monk's Mound. And since the chief was supposed to be the brother of the sun, this was no doubt a big day for him. If you come to Cahokia, drive about a mile down from the interpretive center, be sure to come here to Woodhinge. It's very impressive. This is a very special place. This is where the twin mounds are at. We encourage you to come out and visit them. On my right is Round Top Mound. Round Top Mound is a conical mound. It's a burial mound. And on my left is Fox Mound. Fox Mound is a platform mound built to put an important building on. In this case, it had a charnel house on top of it. A charnel house is what we think of as like a funeral parlor or a funeral home. And this combination of mounds together had a mortuary complex. They were built on a common platform, and in the charnel house, bodies would be prepared for burial and then taken and buried in the conical mound. There was a causeway that connected the two, and we have another set of twin mounds that are much smaller. But this set here is a set that you should visit while you're here at Cahokia. Wait till you see our next stop. If you ever heard the expression, big things come in little packages, Well, you're going to see that at our next stop. Don't let the size of this mound fool you. This is mound 72. All of the mounds here at Cahokia have numbers, only some of them have names. Mound 72 was a very important mound that was excavated between 1967 and 1971. And what they found, they were looking for a postmarker, which they found, and then they started finding human remains. Over the course of those 4 years, they found almost 300 bodies here in mound 72. One of the really interesting ones was a young leader of Cahokia, probably about 20 years old, buried on 20,000 shell beads in the shape of a bird. He was also buried with the Rolex and the BMW of his day. He was buried with rolls of copper, bushels of mica, almost 800 arrowheads, chunky stones, all buried with him with retainers around him, and a woman buried underneath him. So when you come to Cahokia, we have an exceptional display in the museum on mound 72 that you don't want to miss. But take the time to walk down here to mound 72. It'll be worth it. There's a bench down here you can rest and just pause and think about what it was like here in the year 1050 when this mound was being built. This mound is a ridgetop mound. It actually covers 3 smaller mounds. Very important site here at Cahokia. Be sure and visit it. One of the common questions we get here at Cahokia Mounds is, where did all this dirt come from that they used to build these mounds? Of course, it came from the ground and left behind what we call borrow pits. We have approximately 20 borrow pits here at Cahokia Mounds. The largest one is about 17 acres in size, and it's about 6 to 8 feet deep, as most of the borrow pits were. What you see behind me is one of the borrow pits that was left. It's directly across from the interpretive center. Sometimes they would dig the borrow pits to get the dirt and then just let them fill up with water. Other times they would use them to put all their trash, and once they got filled up with the trash, they'd cap them off, and sometimes they even built mounds on top of the borrow pits. This concludes our tour of Cahokia Mounds. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Please come and visit us. Call ahead, check with the Interpretive Center on the hours of operation and some of the special events that are going to be going on. We look forward to seeing you. And remember, these mounds have been waiting for your visit for 1,000 years. Thank you.